Hey everyone, it's Marco Brown. I'm a divorce attorney in Salt Lake City, Utah. I've helped over 3,000 people with divorce, and I wanted to talk about narcissism today. Now, I've made some videos on TikTok about narcissism, and I'm going to get into that experience a little bit later. TikTok's an interesting place, but I'm limited to 60 seconds on those videos, and I'm not limited on YouTube videos, so I thought I would sit here and talk about narcissism and divorce for a little bit. Now I'm going to refer to my notes down here, so if I look down, that's what I'm looking down at. I'm going to say the controversial part first here. You are very likely not married to a narcissist. Okay. This is kind of a fad thing that happens, and I've experienced this throughout my career as a divorce attorney. In the beginning, everybody would come in and they would diagnose their soon-to-be ex, and in the beginning it was bipolar. That was a big one for a long time, and then PTSD for quite a while, and people diagnose themselves with PTSD. They diagnose themselves with PTSD, which can't actually be PTSD, but that's kind of another video. And then, about 4 or 5 years ago, we really started to get on the narcissism train. So everybody would come in, men and women would come in, and they would say, my ex, my spouse is a narcissist, and I'm absolutely sure of it, and they're a master manipulator. I've heard the term master manipulator. I can't tell you how many thousands of times as I met with people, and I've met with over probably 10,000 people at this point, at least 10,000 people at this point, but hundreds of clients have said it, thousands of people I've met with, master manipulator, narcissist. This has been going on for 4 or 5 years, and it's a fad. So people kind of get on this train. They think they can diagnose their ex, and it really is a fad. It's like, well, circles are in right now and squares are out, and it used to be bipolar and now it's narcissism, and it'll be sociopathy or psychopathology, the next one, whatever it is, right? But it's a fad, and that's one of the ways I know that people are not really married to narcissists, is they come in and they're just telling me kind of whatever fad is popular at that time in mental health circles. And narcissism tends to be that thing right now. Okay, I want you to know that your diagnosis of your soon-to-be ex is completely and totally invalid. Okay, so you could possibly be married to a narcissist. It's very, very unlikely actually, but you could. But your diagnosis of your spouse as a narcissist is completely and totally invalid, okay? And it's invalid because 1, you're not trained in psychology. 2, you have not read the DSM-5. You do not know the criteria for narcissism. And 3, you are not a disinterested party. Think about this. In divorce cases in the United States, if you're a PhD level psychologist and you are getting divorced from your spouse, you cannot diagnose your spouse and tell the court, my spouse has X, because you are not a disinterested party. A PhD level psychologist has to go to another psychologist in order to diagnose their spouse. Okay, so if a PhD level psychologist has to do that in order for that diagnosis to be valid in a divorce court, think about you trying to diagnose your soon-to-be ex with absolutely no psychological training. Your diagnosis is completely and totally invalid, okay? So you could possibly be married to a narcissist. You could possibly be married to somebody who has borderline. You could possibly be married to a psychopath, but your diagnosis of that person is just completely invalid. You have to go to a neutral third party who actually knows what they're talking about in this area to go diagnose these people. Now, I got a lot of pushback on TikTok when I said this, because people said, well, you're invalidating people's experiences and they're the ones that would know. No, they're actually not the ones that would know. Like, people in the relationship are not the ones that would know, because they don't know anything about psychology. They don't know anything about diagnosing people, and they are completely and totally interested parties. Okay, you have to be a disinterested party in order to be able to make this kind of rational decision and this diagnosis, and you're simply not. So your diagnosis is invalid. Your judge does not want to know what your diagnosis is of your ex. Your attorney, your divorce attorney, does not want to know your diagnosis of your ex. Okay, I'm going to get into that a little bit later, but they do not want to know those things because, again, your diagnosis is simply not valid. So If that hurts, I understand, but that's the reality of the situation when you get into divorce court. Okay. Now, I've heard from a number of people that there are way more narcissists than I say, because I say that there aren't that many narcissists in America. Now, there are prevalence studies in psychology, and they don't find that many narcissists. There are about 200,000 confirmed cases of narcissism per year in the United States of a population 330 million people, so pretty rare, actually. And your probability of being married to one of these people is even more rare. So again, very, very likely not married to a narcissist. I know that this is going to come as a shock to some people, because apparently, as I've kind of delved into this a little more, there seems to be a cottage industry of gurus talking to especially women, convincing them that they are married to closet narcissists. Now, this is a term that is just pernicious, because what it does is tell people that they know better than experts about psychology. Their spouses are closet narcissists, so no one else could possibly know that they're narcissists, but they know they're narcissists. These gurus know that these people are narcissists, and they validate these individuals, saying, "Oh yes, you are married to a narcissist. They're, if they have these characteristics, which are not DSM-5 characteristics, then you are married to a narcissist." These gurus are quacks, and don't follow them. But it seems to be a cottage industry nowadays. Okay. Yeah, the experience on TikTok, and let me talk about that for a second. It's very, very interesting. I noticed that a lot of people really kind of put a large amount of themselves into their diagnosis of their ex's pathology. Okay, so when I said that you're very likely not married to a narcissist, just people freaked out of their minds. Okay, they called me uneducated. They said I didn't know what I was talking about. They said I needed to shut up, that I was invalidating people, that I was re-victimizing people. I mean, nothing could be further from the truth. I help people get out of abusive situations. I help them deal with narcissists, like, all the time, right? But these people had invested some part of their personality and their character in this diagnosis of their ex. And when I said that they're very likely not married to a narcissist, they freak out of their minds. So there was something a little more to it. I think these gurus, I think these people on the internet are really kind of flaming this and creating this sort of hysteria surrounding narcissism and diagnosing your ex as a narcissist. Okay. So what's actually going on here? If you're not married to a narcissist, what's actually going on is you married a jerk, right? You married a real jerk who treats you very poorly, and you should be validated in that. If you want to divorce that person because they're a jerk, they treated you poorly, they treat your children poorly, they're totally selfish, and they don't give you what you need emotionally, spiritually, physically as a spouse, then divorce them. And that's okay. I'll give you dispensation to do that. You don't need to be married to a narcissist to divorce them, right? You are very, very likely, much, much more likely, to be simply married to a jerk who acts like a jerk, okay? That's what's going on here. We already talked about the judge. Oh yeah, so we're talking about the judge and your divorce attorney not really caring too much about your diagnosis. Look, I'm gonna put it this way. The judge does not want to hear your diagnosis of your ex in divorce court. And if you keep telling the judge what your diagnosis is, if you keep saying the judge must understand my diagnosis, that my ex is a narcissist, and you keep bringing this up in court, the judge is going to dislike you, okay? Because what judges have learned is that people who do this, they repeatedly bring it up without any evidence, without a psychological evaluation of their ex, that these people are very, very difficult. The people that are making this sort of diagnosis are very difficult to deal with and usually have some sort of issue themselves. That's how judges look at this, and that's what judges have realized over the years in my cases, okay? And with your divorce attorney, if you come in and you tell your divorce attorney repeatedly, my ex is a narcissist, my ex is a master manipulator, my ex is this, my ex is that, your divorce attorney is going to look kind of askance on you, a little bit askew. What they're going to do is sit there as they're listening and evaluate whether or not you are the kind of client they want to take on, okay? So if you, now contrast this, if you go into your divorce attorney and you tell them, this happened to me, my spouse did this, my spouse did that, I have evidence of these things, this is how my spouse mistreated me, this is how my spouse mistreated my kids, I have evidence of this, 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 and this, okay? You go in and you do that, your attorney is going to say, my goodness, I want this person as a client because they are organized, they get it, we have to have proof of things, we have to have allegations, they're going to love it and they're going to try to make you hire them. You go in and you just tell them that your spouse is a narcissist and they manipulate everybody and no one knows this but you, and that they're not really going to like that. They're going to look very much askew at you and they might try to kind of throw the consultation so you don't hire them, because divorce attorneys have realized when they get those sorts of people in the door that they're really not great clients. They're usually have, well, not usually, but many times have something kind of wrong with them mentally a lot. Many times they're unreasonable many times, because if you think if you come in diagnosing your soon-to-be ex as a narcissist and they're absolutely terrible, that's usually an indicator that you're going to be super unreasonable when you go to negotiations, and especially if you have kids, because you're not going to let your kids be around a narcissist, right? You can't do that. You must have force your spouse to have the least amount of time with the children as humanly possible. So this is the calculus that divorce attorneys go through. I know this seems harsh to people, but this is the actual calculus. This is what goes on inside a divorce attorney's head as a divorce attorney is meeting with a potential new client. So keep that in mind. What judges and what divorce attorneys want is proof. So if they want specific allegations of specific things that happened to you, and they want proof of those things. So you might feel like you're not being validated in this thing, right? This video is not validating you and your experience, and the judges aren't validating you, divorce attorneys aren't validating you. That is completely and totally untrue. Divorce attorneys want to validate you. Judges want to validate you. What they want, though, is for specific allegations of what happened to you and what happened to your children, how you've suffered, what you've gone through, how your children suffered, what kind of parent your spouse is. They want those specific allegations and they want proof of those things, because no matter what happens, you have to have proof of it when you go to a judge. Otherwise, it's a he said, she said. And I get this all the time from people that the system is broken. And the system is broken because I go in there and my husband or wife is a narcissist and I don't have any proof of anything, but I tell the judge they're a narcissist and I don't get what I want. Okay? You got to have proof of it. Do everything you can. So if you need a psychological evaluation to prove it, get a psychological evaluation. If you have evidence of abuse, get the evidence of abuse. If you have evidence the other person is just a garbage parent and is terrible to the kids, get that. Get that for your attorney. Get that for the judge. That is what they value. That is how you can win your case, right? It's not your diagnosis. It's none of that garbage. It's evidence and facts. Go get evidence and facts. That's what's going to win your case for you. Okay. Oh, and I hear this quite a bit, that divorce attorneys and judges simply cannot, and psychologists a lot of times, simply cannot spot narcissists and master manipulators. Okay, I'm going to let you know a little secret here. Divorce attorneys are actually pretty good at this. Judges are actually pretty good about this. And psychologists are really good about this. Look, like I said, I've helped 3,000 plus people through this process. I can spot a narcissist. I can spot a terrible parent I can spot somebody who just thrives on contention. It's really not that difficult. And you talk with pretty much any divorce attorney that's been around a little bit and is worth their salt, and they're going to say the same thing because they've been through this before. They've seen it hundreds of times. Maybe not narcissists, like clinical narcissists hundreds of times, but they've seen high conflict. They've seen all these things. They've seen narcissists before, and they can identify these things. So you want to believe that you are the only one that sees this in your spouse, or that when others don't see it, it's because they just can't recognize it. It's completely untrue. Other people can recognize this. So keep that in mind. You're not the only one. And if your divorce attorney doesn't see it, the judge doesn't see it, the psychologist doesn't see it, maybe you're wrong about the fact or the non-fact that your husband or wife is a narcissist. Maybe you're wrong. Now, I do get this, that maybe you as an attorney recognize it, but the other attorney doesn't recognize it, right? So attorneys don't recognize it. Well, look, the other attorney's getting paid. The other attorney recognizes it. The other attorney knows who his client is, right? There are some attorneys that are just super bad at this and that are clueless, but there aren't that many of them. There are some attorneys that believe everything their clients tell them, divorce attorneys, but there aren't that many of them. You know, as a divorce attorney, who your client is. You're actually really sanguine about this stuff. So the other side, the other attorney knows their client is kind of a scumball. But you know what? They're getting paid as an attorney. They have a job to do. Everybody deserves representation in our system. It is simply how it works. And I guarantee you that is the way you want it to work, okay? You might not like your ex, but a system that does not allow all parties to have good representation is a terrible, terrible system that leads to extraordinarily bad results. So yes, the other side realizes that they have a garbage fire for a client, but they're getting paid and they have a job to do. So we all get it. We can all recognize these people. And like I said before, this just comes down to evidence. So as you're getting ready to meet with a divorce attorney for the first time, as you're getting ready for trial, as you're thinking about these things, maybe you can't make things work in mediation, put together the evidence. Get the witnesses that can demonstrate to the court what kind of parent your spouse is, what kind of abuse you've gone through in your marriage, what kind of, for lack of a better term, hell it's been for the last 10 years. Put these things together. Put together the photographs, put together the diary entries, put together all of this stuff. If your kids are willing to talk about this, get a guardian ad litem to go talk to your kids and present that to the court. Evidence, evidence, evidence. That is what wins cases. That is what will allow you to get out from under a narcissist. Nothing else is going to do it. It's all about evidence. Okay, thanks everybody. I really appreciate you listening to the video. If you need help with your divorce, give us a call. It's 801-685-9999. You can visit us on the web as well. It's www.utdivorceattorney. And like I said, I really appreciate it. Have a good night.